Oh my God, that's what I was worried about.
So the 2025 race season has ended, and I'm looking at what is going to be my off-season project for 25-26, and it's another SV650 project. This one's going to be interesting. This is a 650cc Superbike build, so it's not an overbore. This bike came out of what had been a pretty special bike, which is what brought me to it. It was an ill-informed purchase on my part, but it's this one back here. It is one of the former they're kind of well known in the Midwest especially, but this was one of the Ed Key style bikes. A whole bunch, I can't even imagine how many hours went into developing these things. So from a historical perspective, I wanted one of them when I saw it come up for sale. If we get further into this and I find out that I actually go through this whole thing, I'll talk a lot more about this. But basically, they are incredibly lightened. 319 pounds was this one. I imagine the engine to be about 80 to 82 horsepower. And we'll probably find some goodies in here. I ended up buying it for like $3,500. Somebody had bought it in 2019 from the previous owner to that, who's the current lightweight record holder at Blackhawk. And he took it, the guy in 2020 took it on a Blackhawk track day, low-sided, never rode it again, put it into a shed. And what I found only after I bought it, is there's water in it and freeze damage. I've already fixed one of the freeze plugs on it. I thought I'd be able to just fire it up, start it, see what we got. And no, there's no chance of that. Inside of here, I have been trying to clean out a bunch of sludge. I know that I have to split this engine in half. There is an engine strainer that's inside of there that you can only get to by splitting the cases, and I am positive that thing's going to be completely plugged up. So I was going through all of my pictures from last year when I rebuilt the engine that I just finished the year up with this one, and that went really well. I mean, this made it multiple endurance rounds. It was substantially faster than the previous year. I mean, it made it the 2.5 hour, well, we didn't do 2.5 hours, but the 2.5 hour race at Daytona. I mean, I hit 144 miles an hour on that engine rebuild. And this is not a tricked out engine. That was following the manual on that one, which is effectively what I expect to do on this. So I thought it'd be interesting to just do a video of what are the tools that are going to be involved in actually taking this thing apart. A lot of people ask, or I mean, I see it because I follow a lot of the SV650 forums. What's involved in, if I got like a bad bearing or something, what's involved in that? And the general consensus is just find another engine. And for the most part, I pretty much agree with that. I know that there has been some work done to this one. This will be interesting for me to go through it. I want to find out if it's going to be worth rebuilding. And if it is, I'm just going to put it back together the exact way it is now, but I know I have to clean everything out of here. So I'll go through the tools that I believe I'm going to need, and I will go through my initial list of what I think I'm going to be looking for inside of here. So let's do that in this part one. And then part two, it won't be a how-to on this, sorry if you're looking for that. Sergey from Mad8V has a great video about disassembling an entire engine. In fact, I'll just be following it again because I did it the first time. So I'll take you through whatever I find inside of this thing. So some of the tools that I'm going to need to be able to go through, pull this engine apart and be able to put it back together, that may not just be obvious. I had to learn a lot of these the hard way. I'm going to go through some of the things, looking at my pictures from last year, what I think I'm going to end up needing to go through this engine. First one being this 1.25 inch cat's claw. I'm sure there's a metric equivalent to this, but basically I need this to go onto the flywheel here so that when I'm torquing it, I have a way to hold the flywheel to keep it from spinning. As you see, this flywheel especially, this is a total loss system, so there are no magnets. The thing's completely cut down. I'm going to need this to be able to hold this. I will end up needing a case splitter at some point. So this is a Tusk 3-ear case splitter. I ended up having to buy this one. This worked really well. So I'll be using this one again. Of course, I did it wrong, so it won't fit. 3 different Motion Pro things here. The first one being the flywheel puller. Now you can pick, this is just an M20 1.5 thread. That'll go in here, and I'll be able to pop off the flywheel on here. You can actually just pick up an M20 by 1.5 at Menards for like $5 as opposed to getting the Motion Pro one. I ended up burning through like 5 of them. I had a junk engine that had seized. I wanted to pull it apart and it was like welded to it. So I ended up burning a whole bunch of bad ones. So that's why I bought this one, but you can go to Menards and get one of those. two of the different Motion Pro spanner nut sockets. You actually don't need this. This is the bigger one, 08-0575. This allows you to get the swing arm off. I think it also is the same on the steering on the triple. So I think it has two uses. You don't need this to get the engine out, but if you're, I managed to get the engine out without having to pull the swing arm off, but I would get one of these if you're going to do anything on there. And then the one you do need to get the engine off is this guy, the 08-0575. This has two different sides on it. This will be necessary to get the engine out of the frame. I ended up getting a ring expander. Now, I don't even know what type of pistons are in these. I don't know that I'm going to be replacing rings because I don't even know what kind of rings they are. But I know you can do it without one of these. When I did my first rebuild, I was just really stringent about wanting to do everything as close as I could by the manual. So getting one of these fancy ones was something that I did, and it was, I mean, it made it easier. Clutch holder for when we take the clutch basket out. This is an EBC. They make some more universal ones as well. I actually have those, but this works way better than the, say, universal ones. One that won't be obvious. You may already have one of these, but you may have the wrong one. This is an impact driver, but I ended up buying this one and putting the project on hold last year until I got this exact one. This is a Vessel JIS bit impact driver. There's two spots where I would want this. There is a bearing retainer on one side for the crankshaft bearing, and also the oil pump. They're on, I mean, they have those Phillips but JIS screws, and if you strip those things, I mean, you're basically out of case. So I didn't want to mess around with it. This worked so much better than the cheap Harbor Freight impact socket, or not socket, impact driver that I had been using. This was worth the purchase, and I'll have this for the rest of forever. This tool, I have a video about doing valve, pulling the valves and whatnot out of the SV. This is the Motion Pro valve pulling tool. This thing is awesome. This is one of my favorite tools to use. It was a very intimidating thing to be able to use it for the first time. This thing's awesome. I like it. 1/4-inch torque wrench and a 3/8 torque wrench. There are some spots that are really tough to torque. One of them specifically is on the piston, so I don't even know what kind of piston. This is a junk piston from something. This may be. Well, it's an SV piston, but I don't think it's an OEM. No, this is not an OEM. Anyway, you need to get these two bolts to 47 foot-pounds while it's on the crankshaft assembly. And I was able to do it, but I'm going to end up building a jig. I mentioned jig, some kind of jig. The manual also states to build this box. You'll see it if you watch Sergey's or Matt 8V's video about disassembling an engine, why you want to build this, but you will want to build the 2x4 thing. But I actually want to not modify that one, but I want to add to it. When I go to torque these bolts, I got to find a better way to actually hold the crank assembly. Another thing with these bolts that I didn't realize, and these are pretty long, something I need to do is actually check the stretch on those to check if they're still within acceptable values, because apparently these things can stretch, and if they have stretched, then you're going to have a whole bunch of issues with, you know, pistons moving around at 10,000 RPM. So that's something I actually have to be aware of this time. I'm hoping not to have to buy any because they're 20 bucks a piece, so it's 80 bucks for some bolts that may not have to be replaced, but it's something to be aware of. This was a very expensive micrometer that I had to buy. I ended up splurging, well, I didn't at first. I bought a shitty one and I realized why that wasn't going to be able to be used. This is a very fancy 3 to 4 inch Mitutoyo, so 10 thousandths, or sorry, yeah, 10 thousandths. This is to measure the piston diameter, so there's going to be an acceptable wear value on it, and if it's over, or I guess it'd be under at that point. If it's under, the piston needs replacement. I was lucky the first time I didn't have to replace them. And then I did buy, this is more just to have it, and there's a couple spots I want to use it. I don't know about the accuracy of these. This is a Harbor Freight set. This may end up being junk. I didn't use these on the first one, but there are several spots where you could, if you wanted to be more thorough, use the other micrometers, so I may end up using those. This is something that I thought was very cool, very fun to use. It's a bore dial gauge indicator. When I went through the first SV, the one that I rebuilt last year, I went through 8 cylinders, 6 cylinders, before I found one that was even close to intolerance. Now, it's really tough to get an exact measurement with this tool, especially because this is not a terribly expensive one. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but a really expensive, really accurate one is going to be many hundreds of dollars. I think this one was like $100. But what it was able to tell me was the shape of the cylinders, and they just get extremely ovaled. And most of mine were well out of spec. One of them was close to in spec, and it was the closest one I had to round. And you might just say, well, why don't you just bore it out? Well, because I wanted to make sure that I remained under 650 cc's and remained ultra lightweight Superbike legal. Because the limit is 650 cc's. This thing comes with I think it's like a 645 cc bore. And I looked, Suzuki makes OEM 1/2 mil over bores. So you can get that and you could send your cylinders off, get them bored, straightened by a 1/2 mil over. The problem is it put you 3 cc's over the limit for ultra lightweight Superbike, and I didn't want to be out of that spec. Ashford just came out with the updated rulebook for 2026, and I saw, because I sent him a message about this. I don't know if I'm the one responsible for it, but I did bring it up, saying that there's so many of these ovaled cylinders, and I've been talking to other people running into the same thing, that if they bumped it by 5 cc, it would allow us to run the 1/2 mil overbore without really getting a power advantage. So that is legal now. So that is an option. If I found these things were completely out, I have no intention of actually boring these cylinders, but I could. This is ball hone. I don't know if I'll end up doing it on this one at all, but I did do the ball hone. I had a couple of my junk cylinders that I ended up doing some practice runs on to try to get, an idea of how the crosshatch was going to look and the speed at which I wanted to do it and whatnot. And there's a whole bunch of, well, some people will say just don't ever do that, it's going to ruin it. I don't know, worked pretty fine. Worked pretty good for me. So, last thing, this is probably one of the major reasons you don't, if you can, just find another engine instead of rebuilding the engine. Just do that instead. This tool, it's basically this and this. This is the crankshaft bearing press tool for the case. Now, it's actually 2 parts. You only need this to get it out, but you need this to put a new one in. I found this on eBay for $60, but it was missing the other part. This retails, I think I looked it up, and it's about $550 now just for the tool. So if you don't know somebody that has one, you're going to end up having to buy this thing. Also, you're going to need like a 20-ton press, which I also bought, which I didn't own before. And then I realized that there was the other half of this tool that I didn't own, and Sergey at Mad8V was nice enough to send me. And Sergey, I realized I still owe you the video about trying to go through this box and figure out everything that's inside of it. But this is the other part that will actually, you'll put the 2 halves of the new bearings on and be able to press it into the case. So $550 for the tool to be able to press new bearings in. And then the bearings themselves are, what are they? They're $20 a piece. You need 4 of them for the engine, and you won't know what size you need until you get the engine split in half. It's going to be marked with a color. The ones that I had on my last engine were black, but basically the color is going to correspond to the size of the bearing, and it's going to be matched to the crankshaft. So you can't buy all of your parts. Even if you knew what all the parts are that you need, you can't buy all of them because you don't know what size crankshaft bearings you're actually going to end up needing. So those were some of the tools that I put together that I know that I'm going to need to go through this. That may not be obvious. And then on this engine, I'll move you into a little bit of a different spot, but I put together a list of some of the things that I'm going to be looking for when I'm going through this potential basket case. I mean, this engine, for all I know, is going to be unusable. It's going to be full of freeze damage, and then I just completely screwed myself on wasting a ton of money. But maybe not, and that's what I want to figure out. So one of the reasons that I wanted this bike, partially because of the history involved with it, partially because going through this is going to be really interesting to me, because it's going to teach me a lot, because the guys that had worked on this, put this engine together, they made changes based on what did and didn't work on the track, and they've done a whole lot of testing about what does and doesn't work on the track. Now, one of the hard parts about it is that I'm not going to understand everything that they did on here. And I actually have a pretty good idea of who probably did this, given the engraving on it. GBSV001F. Now, I don't know what the 001F is, but I have an idea of who probably put this engine together from that. This is what I'm going to be looking for as I'm going through this. This is my list of things. There's going to be more than this. There's going to be some that I haven't thought about yet, but the primary things I'm going to be looking for are going to be on here. I only have a little bit of history on this bike. I did find the original post on the Wera forums, the 13X forums. I forgot to print that thing out, but it gives me some kind of hint about what's going to be inside. Like, I know that the crankshaft was phallic unbalanced. I mean, the pistons, they say they're ceramic coated on the top and Teflon on the side. I don't know if they're OEM. I don't know if you can do that to an OEM. I don't know if they're a different type. I'm really hoping that I find some Carrillo rods inside of it. I have no idea if I will. I have no idea. So here's the list. Sludge, how much is there, and how much made it into the oil pump? I won't know that until I get the thing split apart. But if I go down into here, I can grab some of this. This is what's coming out of it. For all I know, the whole damn thing is full of this. When I first did the oil change on it, I dumped it, and it just poured clear liquid out of it. It was just clear water. And then eventually some oil came out, and I was like, ah, shit, I know what happened. And that's when I found the blown freeze plug. I set up the radiator testing tool. I found pinholes in the radiator and all this other kind of stuff. And it doesn't leak anymore, but I didn't want to put it back together. So the base gaskets. Something I found on one of the other engines I took apart was there was no base gaskets. And now my numbers might be off on this because it's been a while since I did this. I think the stock ones are like 10 10,000ths, and then they make 5 10,000ths, and then I've also seen it just filled with the black RTV type of stuff to keep the bottom cylinder on, and you do that to raise compression on the thing. So we'll see. I don't know if I actually see a base gasket here, but once I get it off, we'll be able to tell. Head gaskets, I want to know what type of head gasket is on it. I'm pretty sure they're the stock ones, so I don't know. I have no way of knowing what what compression modifications they did to this, but a stock head gasket will have 3 layers on it, and one of the common things people will do is actually remove one of the layers on it, but I'm pretty sure that I see 3 of them there. So I don't think it was modified, or the compression was modified by pulling one of the layers of the head gasket out. Something I can't tell you is whether or not any of this, either the cylinder or the head, was milled down. That I'm not sure if I would ever be able to know. I don't have a way of actually measuring that. So on the heads, is there evidence of a port and polish, or do they need cleaning up? One of the things that I found when I took that other engine apart was, well, my valves were very, very, very covered in a really hard white, ashy type of stuff, and there was a whole lot of buildup inside of the heads. So I basically just took a little Dremel tool with one of the soft, like, I don't even know what those are, like a soft Brillo pad on the thing, and just cleaned them out. But I've heard these heads had some work done to them. Curious to see what's inside of them. I don't even know if they're going to be OEM valves. One of the things from the post was that it had a Superbike valve cut. I don't know if that's a different cut for an OEM valve, or if it's an aftermarket valve. I'll probably pull the valves out just to clean them outside of the surface on the valves that actually mate with the seats. I can see that they have some of the same buildup on them. But outside of that, I think I'm just going to get in and I'm going to replace the oil seals on those. So, yeah, on the heads and cylinders, is there evidence of milling for compression? And then I said, will I notice? And truly, I have no idea how I would notice. I don't know how you even measure them to find out if they're taller. I don't have the capability to do it, which is why I am going to replace this with exactly however it is. I'm not going to try to be squeezing any more compression out of it. I don't want to change anything on it. I just want to go through and get it to how it was running before it ended up with the freeze damage. On the cylinder studs, I'm curious to see if it has the OEM studs all the way through, or if they're using something like the Ape studs that a lot of people put on, especially if they go overbore. Like if you bore at the 2 mil or the 3 mil, I think one of the biggest recommendations is to put aftermarket studs in there so they don't stretch, and if they stretch, you blow head gaskets on the things. I don't know if that was done here. Will the cylinders require a re-hone, or yeah, I mean, am I going to have to use the flex hone, the dingleberry hone on these things? They could be rusted out and pretty nasty. Again, it ended up with freeze damage on the thing, so who knows. On the pistons, are they going to be OEM or are they going to be modified aftermarket type of stuff? If so, if they are, which I'm pretty sure that, well, they're modified in some way or they're aftermarket, judging by that post with the Teflon skirts and the ceramic coated top, what the hell goes in, like what goes in them? Can I use rings from something else? I don't know what type of pistons are going to come out of here, and do I need to put new rings into it? If I'm going through all this work, does it make sense to not put new rings in it? I don't even know what type of rings I'd get if they're not OEM. The rods, are these going to be an aftermarket Gorilla rods, or are they going to be the stock, you know, first generation rods? And then I want to check those bolts for stretch, and then obviously I got to figure out what type of bearings are inside of them. Same thing with the rod bearings. I got to figure out what types of, and if they are different, if it is an aftermarket piston, so like this is an aftermarket piston, but it's a stock rod, but if it's an aftermarket rod, what types of bearings do you use? Do you use the OEM bearings in an aftermarket rod? I honestly have no idea. What's next here? So on the crankshaft, the only thing I know about it is that it was a phallic unbalanced crankshaft. I assume when they do that, they rotate the entire assembly. So probably with this set of pistons in them. And then I've never seen what the balanced rod or crankshaft looks like. I assume it's just those holes you find in the bottom where they take weight out of the crankshaft itself. And then what type of crankshaft bearings do I have? You know, what size? Do I even want to replace the bearings if there's no need? I mean, you're going all the way in there, you might as well do it, but it's not cheap, and it's really easy to screw up, that's for sure. Because I did it several times. It costs $20 every time you screw it up. The oil pump gear, well, I can see that now because I pulled this off. So it has, this is not a 99 engine. I think only the 99s are only the black engine, so this can't be a 99 if I'm right about that, but it does have the metal oil pump gear inside of it, so I should probably make sure that that thing looks all right. The camshafts on here, it does have, this has a cam swap on it, so it has what I'm damn near certain are going to be second generation intakes are going to be on the intakes, and then probably first or maybe second generation intakes get moved to exhaust. I'm guessing I doubt that it has third generation, because I don't even think third generation existed at the time this engine was last gone through. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be second generation on the camshafts. The valves I already talked about. I don't know if you could run the Superbike cut. Would that be an OEM valve or is it something else? The strainer. Did the strainer catch all the goop before it got to the oil pump? What has me slightly worried about it, when I talked to the guy that I ended up buying this from, he's like, yeah, there's nothing in it, but I can show you, you know, it'll turn over. So I know he turned it over a couple times. Was that enough to pull sludge into it? If there's sludge that gets into it, how far did the oil pump manage to push it through the oil galleys? If it made it into the oil galleys, is it hardened and solidified inside of there? If I go through the entire rebuild and start it, and the oil galleys are blocked, am I just going to blow the engine up as soon as I start the damn thing because I can't get oil to everything? I don't know. I've never done this before, so that's just something I'm thinking about. I don't know that there's going to be evidence of an ignition advance on this that I would be able to find, but I think I had heard about, oh, you're taking my second place trophy there. I think I had heard about a offset Woodruff key that you could put on here. So like if you wanted to get like a 3 to 4 degree ignition advance, there's a Woodruff key under this that the flywheel's going to sit on. I've never actually seen one before, but it's just something I wanted to be aware of if there was some type of ignition advance, like a mechanical ignition advance that moved the whole assembly forward. Maybe that exists on there. This does have a set of 41 millimeter Kaheen flat slides that will get paired with it. And I'll get into the. I've never messed with those before. I'll get into that if I find this is actually, you know, worth it. After we get through this, I wrote down, what does a thermostat look like? I noticed this one recently. There is no thermostat inside of the housing. That was ripped out, so the housing's all there, but the thermostat's not in there. The clutch, are the plates good to use, and is the basket too worn? I won't know that until I get the actual clutch out. What really disappointed me was that when I bought this, I got some extra spare parts with it, and it came with, there was an empty Yoyodine box, so I just assumed it had a slipper in it. Well, I'm guessing the slipper got swapped out before it ever got sold to the guy before me, so that was a big, that hurt, because those are like $800-900. I put one in my other bike for last year, and I really liked it. An odd thing I'm seeing on here is that when you do the clutch plates, usually there is one bigger plate, and then there is the 6 smaller plates. This one has big, small, small, big, small, small, small. And I don't know if that was intentional, or if, I'm just hypothesizing here, because I don't know. I got to try to figure out what this thing is. And you're trying to figure out why it was sold and how it was sold and whatnot. Did somebody just throw some plates from another clutch into here before it got sold? Why is there a big middle one there? I don't know if it's supposed to be there, and I don't know if that was done for a reason. A lot of the things that had been done on these bikes, they did them for a reason. I made them go faster. I have no idea if that was intentional, though. And yeah, the freeze plugs. I got to make sure the rest of them are actually going to be staying still, and they're not going to become an issue. So anyway, I know how to change the freeze plugs. So that is my run-through on the tools I'm going to need to take this thing apart and the items that I'm going to be looking for when I disassemble this engine. It won't cost me anything to disassemble the engine. It will cost me money to put it back together if I deem it is worthy of putting money back into. So we will find out if it is worth putting money into. So it is the next week, and I have started to take this thing apart tonight. And I'm about to take the heads off. I got to get the thermostat and whatnot off first before I do that, but I figured I'd go through some of my notes to this point. So I am fairly certain to know what the camshafts are. Well, I do know what the camshafts are inside of this. It has first-gen intakes for both the intake and the exhaust. So these are stamped with C on here, and these are stamped with A on here. Both of them are the same. I got A's on this side, C's on this side. That corresponds to first gens on both, which does bring up an interesting thought. I do have a set of unused third gen intakes. So there is an opportunity for me to throw those third gen intakes on the intake side on both of these and potentially get a little bit more power. And I do not think that would, I don't think I have to do any additional math or anything on that to try to make it work. The only thing I'd have to do is just adjust the valve lash, because it is a little bit bigger of a cam lobe that's on the third gen, or yeah, on the third gen intakes. I had to use the, I don't ever want to, but I couldn't get the flywheel off with the M20 by 1.5 flywheel puller without hitting it with the impact. It just wasn't budging, but it came off pretty easily once I did that, which wasn't a big deal. One of the things I'd kind of forgotten, and instead of going back through my notes and going back through the manual, was it does have the cam chain guide. I thought you could get them both out without having the heads off, but I'm pretty sure you can only get one of them out. So I do go through and I label everything with an oil pen. Not that I should be able to screw it up, or most people wouldn't, but I would. So there's a bunch of green writing on everything, because I have a propensity to forget what I did, even if I have a whole bunch of pictures, which is why everything I do goes into different boxes. I'll probably end up with like 15 different boxes by the time this thing is done. And then everything gets put into individual bags and then labeled. And I do label it with the bike, because you think, well, it's going to be in the box. I don't know about that. Every once in a while, things do end up getting moved around. So SV Superbike is this one. Where are we next? The clutch. Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier it has the 2 fat plates on it. I still don't know about that, but regarding the clutch, there were two things that I didn't particularly like. One, the nut that goes on here, it's 27 millimeter outside. The one that goes onto the crankshaft itself felt very crunchy coming off and then coming back on. I'm looking at the threading on here and everything looks fine. But I may want to replace that 27 millimeter nut. I'm pretty sure I have another one to try out. And then the other thing is this is the clutch basket on that one. And well, you can see on the bottom, this was the sludge I was worried about. But the bigger issue I've got with this, well, that one looks really great. Some of these ears, yeah, on this side, especially like this one and this one. This one has extremely worn ears on it, or whatever you call these things. Like, to the point, I am gonna look, I'm pretty sure I have another clutch basket. I don't think I want to use this one again. Doesn't look good. I wish it had the fancy ass slipper clutch in it, but the wear on there, not sure I want to deal with that. It does have a metal oil pump gear, which I knew at the beginning of this video, but worth noting. I need a better set of circlip pliers, the little guys for like taking out the shifter, and I think I just mainly used it on the shifter, both sides. I used it on the oil pump gear as well. This thing, completely worth it. Oh, I looked it up again. It's like 80 bucks for this damn thing. But the metal oil pump, or the oil pump, is here. And to get these things out, they are JIS screws. I fought with that so much last time, and it's like if you bungle it, there's no way you're ever getting it out. This thing is completely worth it. And it did allow me to see one of my major worries about the potential sludge that was in this. There is no evidence that this oil pump was pumping sludge at all. So that's excellent, because then I'm not that worried that there's sludge up here. I know there's a ton of sludge down here because I can see it right now, but I don't think it made it up there because there's no evidence that there was any in the pump, and that it got to the pump, and then it went past the pump. So that's fantastic. One that's going to be a bitch, and I don't know what to do about this outside of pray. On the top here, this is where the shifter mechanism comes out, so where your left foot is going to shift it, so I'm looking at the left side of the engine now. This got damaged. Obviously, I don't know how because I don't know the history of this engine, but this is knocked in. So this is no longer a circle. I don't know how I'm going to replace this seal. In fact, I don't think I'm going to try. I think I'm just going to pray that that seal is going to continue to seal. Maybe it won't actually be that hard if I end up having to do it, but that's not going to be terribly fun. This bike did have, on this side again, down here, I was just curious about it, it does have the first gen shift star, which is not nearly as aggressive as the like 05 and upward or the Spears kit or whatnot. So it just had the stock shift star and the detent with it. And that was pretty much it. That's what I found so far. So I'm going to keep going. Well, this is something I certainly didn't expect to see. There are two base gaskets on here. I'm working on the rear cylinder right now. I don't know what that's about. Obviously a lot of carbon buildup on the top. I don't know if, I think it is an OEM piston. It does say 20F on it, but it does look like it is coated. When I get it out later, I'll get a better view of that. But yeah, it looks like it is Teflon coated. It said something about ceramic top on it. I don't know. We'll see when I get some of that stuff off. Or maybe I'll just take all the ceramic off it. Crosshatch in the cylinder actually looks really good. I'll have to measure it. What I'm worried about is just how much just rust and stuff is in there from the cooling system. But I know I can't just put this in water because it will rust the shit out of this. But I'm impressed with how good the cylinder looks. Just not thrilled about the gasket, or no, the water jacket area. I'm really confused about this. And then all the copper on that, I don't know if that's a copper spray. Actually, can I pull it off? I bet that is a copper spray that was put on the gasket. I don't know why there's two of these. That's kind of alarming. Maybe they're two of the half gaskets. I don't want to increase nor decrease compression. I want to leave it exactly how it is. This is interesting. So I'm not particularly liking what I'm seeing now that I'm taking the heads off. So this is the cylinder, the piston. It does have a coating on it, so this is just a stock one, some old rusty one. But this one's definitely Teflon coated on there. But what's giving me pause? One, it doesn't have fancy rods like I was hoping. It has OEM rods in it, so OEM studs. So OEM studs and OEM rods. The bigger issue I have is that I pulled 2 base gaskets off of here. They're thicker base gaskets. This one has a single base gasket on it, and it feels thinner. I'll have to measure it, but I am pretty damn positive that one's thinner. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're the same. Maybe they doubled up for some reason. Now, why would you double up? One, you forgot and you just put 2 on. It's possible. I doubt it, but it's possible. It could be because they were compensating for a cylinder or a head that was milled down a bit, and they got too close on the compression, so they made up for it by double stacking gaskets. I have no idea. Well, I know how to measure the cylinder. I have no idea how you measure the head. I don't actually know what you would mill if you were doing it. I'm guessing it would be this surface here. Well, yeah, it couldn't be this surface. It would be this surface here, but the reason why I don't know how to do it on a head is the head isn't flat the whole way. So I'm not sure where I have no idea how to even measure that. That sucks because it throws a whole big wrench into... I don't want to change the compression on this thing. But if it was a mistake, I want to fix it. Yeah, I'm confused. Yeah, here's the base gasket on here. I don't remember this. I have some stocks, and I don't think they are the copper gasket like this. Nor do I think this is a copper spray on here anymore. This is just an incredibly thin copper gasket on here. So it's aftermarket something, which, I mean, that's not that surprising. I'm just confused because the stock, or the head gaskets certainly looked stock to me. Also, this piston was much harder to get out of this cylinder, and this cylinder looks, unfortunately, nowhere near as good as the other one. There's a fair bit of scoring, and yeah, not thrilled about that one. The other one looked great. This one had, do you see those like spots? What is that about? I don't know. So this is a little bit weird. So I'm pulling the wrist pin out so I can pull the piston off. And see that score mark? Not sure what that's about. I don't think that's supposed to be there, but it felt like I was getting caught up on it. And I'm guessing that means I need new wrist pins. It looks so perfect that it might be supposed to be there, but I don't think so. Just in case somebody's watching and knows what this is about, this is where that scoring is right there. I'm trying to get it to focus for you, it won't. There's one on the other side, it's not the same size. That's the scoring though. So here's the scoring on the rear cylinder, so it's definitely not intentional. Sorry I'm not getting you any decent focus, but yeah, I mean it's similar, but the lines are different size, so the wrist pin's got to be replaced. I think it says 887 on both of them. If I remember correctly, it was 2.887. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that sounds very similar to what the tolerance level was, like 885 being the lowest level of tolerance. What is that? 885 being the lowest level of tolerance on piston diameter, so I think that's what that number was written on there. Okay, so the case is split. And this is not... Oh, it is going to come out. Okay. So watch me drop one of these nuts inside of here on accident. That is something that can absolutely happen. Last time I did this, I did it from the other side, which was not recommended, but it was how I saw it done. So I don't know what's going to happen here. What I'm hoping is that the transmission stays exactly where it is. Okay. Oh my God, that's what I was worried about. Would you like to see that?
Oh God.
So, the big thing about why I was thinking I had to take this apart, there's a strainer under here. If my guess is correct, it's completely clogged, and the only way to get to it is by splitting the case in half. The other thing I'm thinking is, I bet I'm going to end up using that other engine. The lower end of it. We'll see. Because this thing's pretty fucked. So now that I've got these apart, this is about what I expected. There's some good and there's some bad. Obviously, there's a lot of sludge. My hypothesis that this strainer on this side would be clumped up with a bunch of shit was correct. So this is what it looks like. Could that maybe flush out with a whole bunch of oil changes? Potentially. I wouldn't want to find out. Yeah, this had to come apart to replace this. This is that heavy ass sludge. Most of it was on the bottom. Oh boy, like look at this. No way I was ever getting this out without splitting this case in half. That's really gross. Up top, it doesn't look like a bunch of stuff was just sitting in water. I mean, there is some rust spots on a couple things, but not as bad as I feared it could have been. I'm looking at like the crankshaft now. So this was a balanced crankshaft. You won't see it on the camera, but there's just markings where it was drilled further to take more material off to balance it as an assembly. The big question I'm left with now is, what do I do? And why would I do it? Let me think if I can figure out how to explain this. Now that the engine is apart, I have quite a lot of thinking to do on how I want to proceed on this. Realistically, I don't have to do anything. I can continue running the 2 bikes that I have, and I can continue progressing towards my goals. And it'll be all right. I had a great year in 2025. Plan to have a great year in 2026. Bringing this other bike back is sort of a bit of a, I think it'd be kind of a bit of a passion project, because it's not going to be an easy one to restore this thing. And then where I end up going with it, it kind of gets determined by what the goals are that I want to set for myself, and then also what the rules for the classes are and what's actually going to be, able to be accomplished. I'm not an expert, great rider. I'm not ever going to be professional level. That ship sailed a long time ago. I'm very realistic about that. But I do have some goals in front of me that I think could be attainable in my lifetime, potentially within the next couple of years, which is why I thought taking on this type of project would be fruitful. One of the things I keep hearing from the people that I ride with, and not just my peers that are my same age and same skill level and whatnot, but people that have been around for quite a while, is ditch the SV stuff. Stop wasting your time on that. And I kind of get it, but the thing is, I garner a lot of my comfort level with understanding how something works. And I've been around the SVs for a while. I've taken them apart, I've put them back together, and I have a lot of comfort in knowing what is actually happening with the bike beneath me. Whereas when I get on the Kramer 690, I don't understand anything on it. I haven't touched a single dial on it yet. It's just a bit beyond me. I will get there, but the SV I have a comfort level with, but I don't know everything about them yet. I don't think you could learn everything there is to learn about them in a lifetime, but I'm a lot further along on that. I feel way more at home riding my SV than I do on the Kramer. So in trying to figure out what I want to do with this engine, this potential Superbike build, why would you even take it on? So I wrote down a couple of what my goals are for 2026, and then one a little bit beyond that. Goals in 2026, one of them, the goal coming into 2025, the goal was to podium at Daytona. And I missed it by, I believe, 1/10 of a second. Yeah, that sucked. I haven't stopped thinking about the finish of that race. Going from 5th to 3rd to getting overtaken right at the line. I would have loved to have had a podium there. But realistically, there's only one class that the SV is going to even be able to compete in, and that's ultra lightweight Superbike. I thought Asra was actually going to get rid of ultra lightweight superbike going into the 2026 season due to low participation. I won the Midwest regional on that, basically just by entering every one of them, but I won mostly every race that I entered in the Midwest. I also won lightweight super sport for pretty similar reasons in the Midwest. I won that one pretty handily. And then I also finished second in GTL. Those two regional championships, though, despite the fact that there wasn't the highest level of participation, lightweight super sport's a pretty cool one to win. I don't have the need to win another regional championship again in my life. I haven't. So I want to go trophy hunting now. Goals for 2026. I want to win at Daytona. That would be like a lifetime achievement. So the bikes that can win that, you can win that on SV. You got to be a better rider than me, and I can be a better rider than I am now by the time we get there in 2026, but I need to go faster. I won't do it on this bike. I went about 210. Realistically, I think I could get this down another second. I should be well into the 209s. I need to go faster. ZX4 is pushing a fair bit more. The guy who won them, he's also a better rider than me, but I can make up some gap. That's why I think this bike would be worth it. If they got rid of ultra lightweight superbike, there's no point, because I can't win lightweight super sport on well, you wouldn't even be in super sport, you'd be in Superbike at that point. The Aprilias out of the box are they're just going to destroy you. It's what happens. I mean, they're 10 to 15 miles an hour faster. That's too much of a gap for me to be able to make up. However, ultra lightweight superbike is coming back for this year. There's an opportunity that I could figure out how to get 3 seconds. Get a second and a half out of my riding, get a second and a half out of the bike. That puts me right there with the leading bike. That's a lot to invest on a single 6-lap sprint. But that's why I'm starting to think about this project. Second goal, I want to drop to the 14s at Blackhawk. That's a pretty big drop. I won't do it on this bike. I ran a 16.2 on the Kramer my second weekend out there. I regressed in the third weekend, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get there. I mean, that's going to be the goal on the Kramer. But if I can figure out how to do it on an SV, that would make me feel even better, because I prefer the SV to the Kramer. I have not figured out how to ride that Kramer at all. I'm 10 times more confident on an SV than I am on the Kramer, despite the fact that the Kramer weighs 282 pounds and it handles so much better. There's weird characteristics on that handling I'm not used to. And maybe I ought to just commit to that one bike, and that's been the recommendation from most people. Stop fucking around with the SVs, commit to that bike, commit to the Kramer, but I like the SVs. The third goal, I would like to run the entire 2-hour endurance race at Blackhawk solo. I saw that they put the endurance race back at Blackhawk for this year. It's one of the 4 events for ASRA. I ran an hour and a half at Daytona this year, and everything was fine outside of the insides of my legs from gripping the tank. The problem is Daytona is the easiest track that you can ride laps at. There's so much sitting still. Blackhawk, in my estimation, is the most physical track that I've run. It happens to be the home track, but that might be a bridge too far. That would be most likely on the Kramer. And then lastly, I have to think about this when I'm thinking about what to do with the engine, is I probably want to make a Moto America attempt in 2028. That's 3 years from now. I'm part of a group that is forming a team. We had talked about this. I have several of my friends that I run with every week where we run. They are going to be making attempts this year, which is pretty damn awesome, and I considered it. I don't think I'm ready to be doing that, but I want to do it within 3 years. Neither of these bikes help me towards that. The Kramer is just, well, it obviously isn't legal for anything like that, and the SVs are no longer homologated. Even if it was Gen 2, it's still no longer homologated. But I do want to think about that. The thing is, Obviously, I'd have to buy like an Aprilia RS660, or I'd have to find somebody to borrow one from. There's so much that I need to be able to, that I can learn on these, that I need to be a better rider on these before I would even consider, trying to make a MotoA event. So it is a thought that I have. So what are my paths on the Superbike SV? I mean, I just talked about it, took the engine apart, taking a look at it. What do I throw money at? Do I throw any money at anything? Rebuild the Superbike, the SV Superbike as it is at the 650cc. Realistically, I think that's one of the only two options that are going to make sense. Take the sludge part of the equation out. There's some trick stuff to that engine. There's some stuff that I thought would have been more trick, and it isn't that trick. I think realistically, especially if I throw different cams inside of that thing, 82, 83 horsepower out of it, 650cc bike on this chassis that weighs 319 pounds. I'm going to end up putting probably 6 pounds back onto it. 325 pounds. That's a bit of a rocket. Also, it has a pedigree of being a bike that, by the current lap record holder there, has put down 12s at that track. Now, that's something I'm never going to see in my lifetime. I'm not even going to pretend that I could. But is that something I want to pursue on that? The only reason to keep it at 650cc, though, is for the ultra lightweight Superbike rules. Well, there's two reasons. One, it'll be cheaper because I don't have to change the cylinders, nor do I have to change the pistons, nor do I have to change the rods. If I outright wanted pace, speed, and everything like that, I would be boring this out 2 millimeters. I would be putting rods in it, and I would have the cylinder. Yeah, I mean, it would be bored, rods, new pistons. And then I gotta hope that the thing doesn't grenade. I don't think it, well, who knows? I'm not an engine builder. So if you go that route of boring the thing out, there's a whole bunch more you actually have to be in tune to and be ready to do a bunch of trial and error in the learning. And there's only so many times I get to be on track a year. I don't know that I want to be testing like that. I want to go and race, and I want to have a chance to compete. I don't want to be troubleshooting a bike the entire time. Not a bike with 25-year-old bike with an engine that may or may not be ideal, with a ram air box, with a set of carburetors I've never messed with before. I still haven't messed with them because I don't know if I want to put money into this at all. The third option would be to rebuild that SVSB, the 650cc engine, and put a different lower on it if I'm not trusting all the things I've been finding outside of that and in the sludge and whatnot. And I think that might be the route I end up going. I have another lower that I was saving for a project where I did want to dive into engine building a little bit and do a 2 millimeter overbore. I've already got the cylinders and pistons for it from a Gen 3. That's where I have the Gen 3 camshafts from. It was a thought that I was going to do, try to put together like an 85 to 90 horsepower engine and just see what we could do. But maybe it makes more sense to actually donate that lower to the 650 build if I end up wanting to do Daytona and to try to win a race. Realistically, if I pursue this entire engine, it is to try to win one 6-lap sprint race at the end of the year. And then the last path that I have is the one that seems the most appealing, is to do nothing. Call it a $3,300 loss on buying that bike. And that's the advice I've been getting from everybody. Do nothing. Stop messing with these dinosaurs and learn how to ride the other bike fast. And maybe I ought to do that. But winters here last 6 to 7 months, and I have to fuck around with things in the basement because it helps me be a better rider when we get to June and July if I understand how things work. I can't do anything on that Kramer right now that would help me. I can tear apart SV engines, put them back together. Maybe they work, maybe they don't, but it makes me a smarter person. And it helps me keep a little bit of sanity in the winter, or maybe it hurts it. I don't know. So anyway, there'll probably be more in this series if I end up going further with this engine. So if you watch this far, thanks for watching.